This is the political scandal they didn't want you to understand. A first lady's secrets, a rising congresswoman's receipts, and the collapse that nobody saw coming until the cameras caught everything. This isn't about fashion. This isn't about gossip. This is about power. Stay to the end, because what happens in the final 4 minutes will remind you why silence is never neutral. They played it over and over again. The clip, 10 seconds, maybe 12, but enough. Melania Trump, stone-faced in a navy coat, stepping off the curb outside the Ritz in Zurich, and then stumbling. Her heel caught, or maybe it didn't. Maybe it was something else. Her eyes fluttered, her posture faltered, and in real time, broadcast across every major network, the former First Lady dropped to the ground. The man next to her, a staffer, a bodyguard, didn't catch her in time. Within minutes, social media had slowed the footage down to frame-by-frame analysis. The same stiff posture, the same handbag, the same shoes from dozens of Getty images. Melania, the man in the cap still unidentified, but people were already making guesses, and some of those guesses were sticking. By 11:00 a.m., Melania had canceled an upcoming appearance in Palm Springs. At 1:12 p.m., a close friend of hers quietly deactivated her Twitter account. By 2:00 p.m., whispers began leaking from inside the Mar-a-Lago circle. She was told to lay low, avoid press, regroup. The collapse wasn't just physical anymore. It was reputational, and in a quiet corner of her office in Dallas, Jasmine Crockett sat alone. No press team, no entourage, just her and a laptop, reviewing every document, every thread. Her chief of staff, Keon, stepped in. "One of your former aides just spoke off the record," he said. "Wants to come forward. Says she was in Marbella with them. Handled the room reservation." Jasmine didn't react. She clicked open another tab. "Does she have documentation? Receipt from the resort? Her name's on it." Jasmine exhaled, not with relief, with steadiness. "Schedule her for a private statement. No press. Just audio. Time-stamp it." "What about legal blowback?" "She won't say anything that can't be verified. We're not going after character, we're going after patterns." It wasn't about the affairs, not really, not for Jasmine. It was about the connections, the flow of information. The names that popped up across different meetings, the coincidental policy shifts that followed. Cable news anchors began using new phrases: international leverage, potential compromise, conflict of interest. For the first time in years, Melania Trump wasn't being talked about in the context of fashion or marriage, but power. And Jasmine, she hadn't done a single interview. That silence had become strategic. Poised, disruptive, but not everyone saw it that way. Late that evening, Jasmine received an email flagged by her security consultant, a cease and desist notice. Melania's attorneys were threatening to sue for defamation, privacy invasion, emotional distress. Jasmine skimmed the letter, then deleted it. "Do I need to worry?" Keon asked. She shook her head. "You don't sue people when they're lying. You sue them when they're telling too much of the truth." He nodded. "Still, this isn't over." "I don't need it to be over," she said. "I just need it to stay honest." But before Jasmine could decide her next move, the story took another turn, because someone on Melania's side had had enough of protecting secrets. She didn't flinch when the subpoena arrived, folded neatly inside a plain white envelope, delivered by hand to her district office. Most public figures would have been rattled. Jasmine just held it in her hand, scanned the return address, and said, "There it is." Keon looked at her like she'd lost her mind. "You're being called to testify in D.C., Jazz. That's not nothing." "I know," she said, slipping the envelope into her bag. "That's why I'm not going to dodge it." 2 days later, Jasmine sat before a subcommittee. A dozen cameras lined the back wall. Microphones perched like vultures across the desk. Some of the faces across from her were familiar Republicans who'd barely disguised their disdain for her even before all this began. Others pretended to be neutral, but you could see the calculation in their eyes. She adjusted her mic. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, representing Texas's 30th District. The chairman spoke first. "Congresswoman, We're here today not to relitigate headlines, but to understand the extent of your actions and the potential national implications. Do you understand?" Jasmine leaned in. Voice steady, "I do." A few members jumped straight into hostile territory. "Are you working with foreign intelligence? Did you exploit personal affairs for political popularity?" She let them talk. Let them finish. Then she answered, calm, controlled, "I sat on this information for months, not because I didn't believe it mattered, but because I knew what would happen the second I spoke it aloud. I'd be called emotional, vindictive, opportunistic." The room fell quiet. "I didn't release this to punish anyone. I released it because public figures aren't just individuals. They're influence. And if that influence is being shaped behind closed doors, the people deserve to know." Subtle nods around the table. Cautious respect. The real shift came later that day. Jasmine sat for her first on-camera interview since the broadcast. It aired on a Sunday evening at 6 p.m. The network didn't promote it heavily. They didn't need to. Across from her sat veteran journalist Darlene Rowe. "I have to ask," Darlene said, "did you know it would go that far, that she would collapse?" Jasmine didn't hesitate. "No, I didn't expect that. I expected denial. I expected spin. I didn't expect her body to do what her words wouldn't." "Was there a part of you that felt regret afterward?" She took a breath. "Yeah, not about what I said, but about how much silence people are willing to endure for the sake of comfort. That's what shook me. Some have said this moment was the death of decorum in politics." "You mean the line between what we know and what we say out loud?" Jasmine smiled. "I think we crossed that line a long time ago. I just held up the receipt. That clip went viral, not because it was dramatic. Because it was clear. In Alexandria, Virginia, a former Trump aide watched the interview. Her name was Colette Baines, 42, former executive liaison, signed NDA, traveled with Melania, once invisible. Now impossible to ignore. She sat in a small office, mic clipped to her blazer, recording an interview with a whistleblower journalist. "I don't want money," she said. "I want distance, and I want the truth recorded the way it actually happened." She sipped water. She lied about where she was, who she was with. It wasn't random, it was coordinated. "I booked the travel through shell companies, signed the NDA, even when no one else knew the meetings were happening." "Why now?" the journalist asked. "Because Jasmine Crockett reminded me what silence costs." That was the moment it changed again. Screenshots, travel logs, blurred names, verified timelines. Colette didn't say it with rage. She said it with exhaustion. Was Melania ever involved with foreign investors seeking influence inside the U.S.? Yes, Colette said, and not just socially. The floodgates opened, more whistleblowers, a security firm in Belgium, a shell company that had once bid for a digital federal contract in 2021. This wasn't about affairs anymore. It was about influence brokering. And Jasmine, she stayed quiet, let the facts speak. Melania vanished from public view. Her lawyers dropped the lawsuit. Some conservatives defended her. Others called her a liability. And Jasmine, she got back to work. She started showing up in Shreveport, Dalton, Branson, not for photo ops. For town halls. An older man stood up in one. "I've voted Republican my whole life, but you looked that woman in the face and told the truth. That counts." In Topeka, a single mom asked, "How do we keep people like you from being drowned out? You keep talking about more than the scandal." Jasmine said, "That's how we turn one moment into a movement." Her approval ratings climbed. Podcasts clipped her speeches. College forums invited her. One quote was painted on a building in Fresno: "You don't break systems by screaming at them. You break them by showing people how they work in the first place." Then came the final moment, Fort Worth. No podium, no press, just a civic engagement meeting in a community center. A 17-year-old girl asked, "How do you keep doing this when everyone's trying to tear you apart?" Jasmine looked at her, asked for a phone. She sat forward. "I didn't come into politics to chase scandal. I came to fight for people who don't get invited into the rooms where decisions are made. But in those rooms, you see how much pretending happens. Pretending you didn't hear what you heard. Pretending truth can wait." eventually is too late for a lot of folks. I'm not brave. I'm just tired. I decided if I was going to be in the room, I wasn't going to whisper. I was going to speak. Her voice didn't rise. I didn't throw insults. I brought receipts. And yeah, there's a cost, but I sleep at night. I look my mother in the eye, and I didn't waste my voice. Speak when it matters, even if your voice shakes. The clip went viral. No editing, no polish, just truth. Melania never responded again. No interviews, no appearances. Months later, federal reports confirmed the shell companies, the private meetings, and the policy links. Jasmine passed 2 bills. They weren't flashy, but they mattered. That student from Fort Worth wrote her a letter. I'm applying for a fellowship in D.C. I'm not scared anymore. If this story made you think if it challenged something you've been told to stay quiet about, don't scroll away. Hit subscribe, share it, let someone else feel seen too, because stories like these aren't about headlines, they're about what we do next.